A young billionaire finds an abandoned car on the side of the road, but is shocked to discover a little girl taking care of a baby. The revelations that follow change his life forever. The engine of the Porsche 911 GT3 hummed softly as Ryan Adams sped through the deserted rural highway late at night. The winding road, flanked by towering pine trees that stood like silent sentinels against the starlit sky, was his refuge when he needed to escape the crushing weight of being the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the country. Tonight, in particular, after an especially tense meeting with the board, he needed this moment of solitude. The speedometer read 75 mph, a velocity that would make most people tense up. But for Ryan, it was just another number. His sharp reflexes, honed on countless racetracks, kept the powerful German machine under absolute control. The black leather interior absorbed the night silence, broken only by the occasional buzz of notifications on his phone, which he deliberately ignored. That was when something caught his attention in the rearview mirror, a faint metallic glint reflecting his headlights. He instinctively slowed down, his eyes trained to detect anomalies, a skill that had catapulted him to the top of Silicon Valley before the age of 30. About 50 yards behind him, partially hidden among the shadows of the trees, sat a silver sedan on the shoulder. Ryan hesitated for a moment. His rational mind told him to keep going. After all, on a deserted road in the middle of the night, stopping could be dangerous. But something nagged at him. Maybe it was the strange angle of the car, or the complete absence of hazard lights, or perhaps it was something deeper, a distant echo of his own history that he tried so hard to bury. "Damn it," he muttered, gently braking and maneuvering the Porsche to park a few yards ahead of the abandoned vehicle. His fingers drummed on the steering wheel for a few seconds while he sized up the situation. The digital dashboard read 11:47 p.m. and the outside temperature was 54 degrees. It wasn't a night for anyone to be stranded on the road. He grabbed the emergency flashlight from the glove compartment, a habit his assistants called paranoia, but one he had maintained ever since he couldn't count on anyone but himself. He stepped out of the car, and the cold night air hit him like a slap, prompting him to pull his Armani blazer closer to his body. As he approached the sedan, his footsteps crunching the gravel under his Italian loafers, something felt off. The car was dusty, as if it had been there for days, not hours. The windows were fogged, and there was no sign of movement inside. That was when he heard it, a sound so soft it could have been just the wind rustling through the trees, but it wasn't. It was a sob, a child's sob. Ryan's heart began to race. He shone the flashlight through the car's window and felt his blood run cold. In the back seat, a small girl, no more than 6 years old, was curled up, cradling what appeared to be a baby. "Oh my God," he whispered, his hand already reaching for the door handle. It was unlocked. The girl shrank back even more when the door opened, her large, frightened eyes reflecting the flashlight's beam. She was dirty and obviously exhausted, but what struck Ryan most was the way she protected the baby in her arms, like a lioness defending her cub. "Hey, it's all right," Ryan said softly, crouching down to be at her eye level. "My name is Ryan. Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head, but her lips trembled. The baby in her arms stirred slightly, letting out a small whimper of discomfort. "Where are your parents?" Ryan asked, though something in his gut already knew the answer. Something about the way the girl held the baby, the silent desperation in her eyes, was painfully familiar. They wouldn't wake up," the girl whispered, her voice hoarse as if she hadn't spoken for days. "I tried to wake them, but they just—" The memory hit Ryan like lightning. Him at 8 years old, shaking his mother who was sleeping on the couch, a needle on the floor. The panic, the confusion, the sense of complete abandonment. He forced himself back to the present. "How long have you been here?" he asked, now noticing the remnants of snacks scattered around the car. Clearly, the girl had found something in the luggage to feed herself and the baby. 2 days, I think," she replied, her eyes never leaving his, assessing him with a wisdom far beyond her years. "Sophia was crying a lot, but now she's quieter. Ryan felt his heart clench, realizing that this little girl had taken care of her baby sister alone in an abandoned car for 2 whole days. He was already pulling out his phone to call 911 when another thought struck him. Once the authorities arrived, the children would be placed in the system. The same system he knew so well, one that had shaped his childhood in ways he'd rather forget. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm as he dialed 911. "Ava," she replied, adjusting the baby in her arms. "And this is my sister, Sophia. She's 8 months old." While he waited for the call to connect, Ryan observed the 2 sisters. Despite the obvious fear in Ava's eyes, she maintained an impressive composure. Sophia slept peacefully, seemingly well cared for despite the terrible circumstances. 911, what's your emergency?" Ryan quickly provided the details of the situation and his location. The operator assured him that both police and paramedics were on their way, but it would take at least 20 minutes to reach the remote location. "It's really cold out here," Ryan said after hanging up. "Would you like to wait in my car? It's warmer, and I have water and some snacks." Ava hesitated, years of caution etched into her young face. "Mummy said never to go with strangers." Ryan felt a sad smile form on his lips. "Your mum was right, but look, I'll leave the door open and you can see me the whole time. Also," he pulled out his wallet and showed her his ID. "Here's my name and photo. I'm not a stranger anymore, right?" Something in his voice or eyes must have convinced her, because she nodded slowly. Taking care not to wake Sophia, she let Ryan help her out of the car. The short walk to the Porsche was silent, save for the crunch of their footsteps and the baby's soft breathing. Ryan turned on the heater as soon as they got in, and the luxurious interior of the sports car looked surreal with its 2 small passengers. "Are you thirsty?" he asked, reaching for a water bottle in the glove box. Ava accepted with small, trembling hands, and Ryan noticed her nails were dirty and broken, likely from trying to care for the baby alone for so long. As Ava sipped the water in small gulps, Ryan couldn't help another flashback, this time of his first night in the orphanage. The fear, the uncertainty, the overwhelming feeling of being completely alone in the world. But he had been older, stronger. These girls were so small, so vulnerable. "Ava," he began gently, "can you tell me what happened to your parents?" The girl lowered the water bottle, tears filling her eyes as she bravely tried to hold them back. "We were coming back from visiting Grandma," she began, her voice trembling. "It was raining really hard. Daddy said we should stop at a motel, but Mommy wanted to get home because Sophia needs to sleep in her crib." She paused, hugging her sister tighter. Ryan waited patiently, his own heart aching at the child's obvious pain. "I saw big lights coming, and then everything spun really fast," she continued in a whisper. "When it stopped spinning, I called Mommy and Daddy, but they didn't answer. There was so much blood, and I got scared." Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady his own emotions. "You were very brave, Ava," he finally said. "You took such good care of your baby sister." "I tried to get help," she said, tears finally rolling down her dirty cheeks. "But Mommy's phone was broken, and no car stopped. I found Sophia's diapers in the suitcase, and there were some cookies and water. But she's hungry, I know she is." As if responding to her sister's words, Sophia began to stir, her little lips forming the beginnings of a cry. Ryan could hear sirens in the distance now, but it would still be a few minutes before they arrived. "Hey, Ava," he said, an idea forming in his mind. "Do you think Sophia would take powdered formula? I've got an emergency kit in the trunk with some basic supplies." Ava's eyes widened with hope. "Do you have some? She's been on formula since she was born. Mommy couldn't—" Ryan was already stepping out of the car. In seconds, he returned with a small emergency bag, another habit his staff found odd, but which was now proving invaluable. Inside was a single-serving packet of baby formula, as well as a still-sealed baby bottle. "I always keep a fully stocked first aid kit," he explained as he prepared the formula with bottled water. "How you never know when you might need it." Ava watched his every move carefully, still shielding Sophia, but visibly more relaxed. When Ryan offered her the prepared bottle, she tested it on her own wrist, a gesture that caught him by surprise. "Mommy always does that to see if it's too hot," she explained, apparently satisfied with the temperature. As Sophia drank eagerly, the sirens grew louder. Soon red and blue lights danced between the trees, and Ryan felt Ava tense up again. "It's okay," he assured her. "They're here to help us. Medics to check if you and Sophia are okay, and officers to take care of everything." "Are they going to take us away?" Ava asked, her fear palpable. Before Ryan could answer, 3 police cruisers and an ambulance pulled up near them. What followed was a whirlwind of activity, paramedics examining the girls, officers asking questions, flashing lights, crackling radios. Ryan watched it all with a growing sense of déjà vu, but this time he was on the other side of the situation. He wasn't the scared kid being taken away by strangers anymore. He was an adult with the power and resources to make a difference. When the paramedics suggested taking the girls to the hospital for a full evaluation, Ava panicked, clinging to Ryan's blazer sleeve. "Please don't leave," she begged, her large eyes filled with fear. "Please?" Ryan glanced at the paramedic, then at the nearest police officer. "I'm going with them," he declared in a tone that brooked no argument. It was the same tone he used in board meetings when a decision needed to be made. "Sir, only family members can—" the paramedic began, but Ryan cut him off. "I found these children. I'm responsible for them until this situation is properly resolved," he said, his voice firm but polite. "Besides, I'm Ryan Adams, CEO of Adams Tech. I'm sure we can sort out any paperwork once the girls are safe at the hospital." The name had the desired effect. The officers exchanged knowing glances, and the paramedic merely nodded. Within minutes, Ryan was seated in the ambulance beside Ava, who still held Sophia, while the medical team monitored them both. During the ride to the hospital, Ryan couldn't help but notice how Ava stayed close to him, as though she had found a safe harbor amid the storm in her young life. Sophia had fallen asleep again after drinking the formula. Her tiny face finally relaxed. A distant memory surfaced in his mind, himself in a similar hospital room, alone and frightened, waiting for someone, anyone, to save him. No one came. He had to learn to save himself, building his life from scratch, turning his pain into fuel for success. But now, looking at these 2 sisters, one protecting the other with a strength that defied her age, the other sleeping peacefully, trusting her big sister completely, Ryan felt something shift inside him, a connection he couldn't explain, a call he couldn't ignore. "It's going to be okay," he whispered, more to himself than to the girls. "I promise." And for the first time in his life, Ryan Adams made a promise without calculating risks or thinking about consequences, a promise straight from the heart. The hospital was eerily quiet when they arrived, as if the building itself sensed that 2 small souls needed peace. The medical staff was waiting at the emergency entrance, and Ryan watched with a heavy heart as they examined Ava and Sophia. "They're dehydrated," explained a middle-aged doctor, Dr. Martinez, according to her badge. "But all things considered, they're surprisingly well. Ava did an amazing job taking care of her sister." Ryan nodded, watching through the glass as a nurse gently wiped Ava's face. The girl refused to take her eyes off Sophia, who was being examined in a nearby crib. "Mr. Adams," a deep voice called him. It was one of the officers from the scene. "We need to discuss the situation." Over the next few minutes, the officer explained what they had discovered so far. The accident had occurred during a heavy rainstorm. The Mitchell's car had skidded on a bend, flipping several times before coming to rest where Ryan found them. The parents, Robert and Emily Mitchell, died instantly. By some miracle, the sisters in the back seat survived with barely a scratch. "What about relatives?" Ryan asked, though something in his gut already knew the answer. "We're looking into it, but so far—" The officer checked his notes. The maternal grandmother passed away 6 months ago. That was who they were visiting. The father was an only child, parents deceased. The mother had a sister, but she died 2 years ago in a car accident as well. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, memories of his own history merging with the present reality. When he opened them again, his decision was already made. "Officer," he said, his voice carrying the weight of years of built determination, "I want to begin the process to obtain temporary custody of these girls." The officer looked at him in surprise. "Mr. Adams, with all due respect, there are procedures, investigations." "I'm aware," Ryan cut him off gently, "and I intend to follow them. But those two little girls just lost everything, and I refuse to let them face the system alone, not when I can do something about it." In that moment, a soft cry came from the room. Sophia had woken up and was fussy. Before the nurse could act, Ava was already at the crib, whispering soothing words to her sister. Ryan observed the scene, feeling something awaken in his chest, a protective instinct he never knew he possessed. His phone vibrated in his pocket, probably another urgent message from the office, another crisis demanding his immediate attention. For the first time in his adult life, Ryan Adams ignored his corporate empire's demands completely. There were more important decisions to make, a promise to keep, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to heal not just two small orphans, but also the wounds he himself had carried for so long. "It's going to be okay," he repeated quietly, watching the two sisters. And this time, the words carried the weight of absolute conviction. The conviction that some encounters aren't mere coincidence, but the beginning of something much greater than ourselves. Ryan stood in his 20th floor corner office at Adams Tech, staring out at the morning sun painting the skyscrapers in golden hues. But his mind was miles away, in the hospital room where Ava and Sophia slept. 3 days had passed since that fateful night on the road, and every minute seemed to bring a new complication. "Mr. Adams," his executive assistant, Sarah, called from the doorway. "The social worker has arrived." He turned, straightening his tie subconsciously. "Send her in." Jessica Taylor walked in with determined steps, a thick folder under her arm. Her brown eyes quickly scanned the room before settling on Ryan, a professional gaze he recognized from years of dealing with people who tried to gauge his intentions. "Mr. Adams," she began, her voice clear and direct, "I'm Jessica Taylor, assigned to the Mitchell sisters case. We need to discuss some urgent matters." Ryan gestured for her to sit. "Please, call me Ryan, and yes, we have a lot to discuss." Jessica opened her folder, revealing a neatly organized stack of documents. "First, I must inform you that we've confirmed there are no close living relatives for the girls. Their situation is," she hesitated, "delicate." The word hit Ryan like a punch to the gut, dragging up memories he preferred to keep buried. 23 years earlier, 9-year-old Ryan sat in a chair too hard for his thin body, his legs swinging because they didn't reach the floor. The same word, delicate, echoed in the room as adults debated his fate as if he weren't there. "The boy's situation is delicate," they said. "No relatives, no resources." The smell of disinfectant in the Santa Cruz orphanage burned his nose, mixing with the lingering aroma of boiled cabbage that seemed embedded in the walls. His only belongings, a worn backpack with a few clothes and a tattered storybook, rested at his feet like a silent reminder of everything he'd lost. "Present, Ryan?" Jessica's voice pulled him back. "Are you all right?" He blinked, forcing himself to focus on the here and now. "Yes, sorry. You were saying about the girl's situation." Jessica studied him for a moment before continuing. "There's a standard process in these cases. The children are normally placed in a temporary institution while we search for a suitable adoptive family." "No." The word came out stronger than he intended. "I'm sorry, but I can't allow that. I want to immediately begin the process to obtain temporary custody of them." Jessica leaned forward slightly, her expression growing more serious. "Mr. Adams, Ryan, I understand your desire to help, but there are procedures that must be followed. A full background check, psychological evaluation, home visits." "Do them all," Ryan interrupted, getting up to walk to the window again. "Today, if possible. I have resources, a safe environment, and more importantly, I understand exactly what those girls are going through." He turned to face her, and something in his expression must have caught Jessica's attention. because she paused in her page turning. "You have experience with the adoption system?" she asked softly. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the memories he was about to share. "I grew up in the Santa Cruz orphanage from the age of 9 to 16. My mom died of an overdose when I was 8. My dad? Never knew him. 20 years earlier, 12-year-old Ryan sat on the windowsill of the boys' dormitory, watching the rain fall. His fingers traced patterns on the foggy glass as he tried to ignore the sobs of the new kid who had arrived that afternoon. Everyone cried their first nights there. Ryan didn't. He had promised himself he would never cry again after that first week. Instead, he funneled all his energy into studying, planning, dreaming about the day he'd leave. The other boys called him weird, a robot. The staff said he was emotionally distant. But Ryan knew the truth. It wasn't distance, it was survival. "Present Santa Cruz?" Jessica asked, her voice betraying recognition. "I interned there a few years ago. It was a tough place." "Still is, from what I hear," Ryan replied, returning to his seat. "That's why I can't let Ava and Sophia go to an institution. They need to stay together, to have stability, to have someone who understands," Jessica finished softly. Ryan nodded, picking up his tablet. With a few quick taps, he projected a series of documents onto the wall screen. "I've already made some preparations. My legal team is working on the necessary paperwork. I've had an entire wing of my home adapted for the girls. A bedroom, a nursery, a play area. I've hired a private pediatrician and a nurse specializing in infant care." Jessica watched the blueprints and documents with a mixture of admiration and caution. "You did all this in 3 days?" "Actually, in 36 hours, he corrected. "Time is critical here. Every day that passes is another day those girls live in uncertainty and fear." 18 years earlier. "Get up, Adams," the night monitor's rough voice echoed through the dorm. "Nightmares again?" 14-year-old Ryan sat up in his narrow bed, his body trembling with cold sweat. The same nightmares always. His mother on the couch, the needle, the deafening silence of death. "I'm fine," he muttered, but his hands still clutched the sheets tightly. "Want to talk about it?" the monitor asked, more out of obligation than real interest. No. Ryan already knew talking didn't help. The only thing that helped was his plan. Study, work, build something of his own. Something nobody could take away. "Present, Ryan." Jessica pulled him back once more. "You need to understand, even with all the resources in the world, there are aspects of this process that can't be rushed. Especially the emotional impact on the girls." He leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "Believe me, I understand the emotional impact better than anyone. That's precisely why I'm doing this. Every minute that goes by..." His phone vibrated. Another urgent message from the board. He ignored it. "Your investors must not be happy about this distraction," Jessica observed. Ryan gave a bitter smile. "They'll survive. I built this company from the ground up, turned a college dorm idea into a tech empire. If they don't like my priorities now, well..." He left the sentence hanging. Jessica studied him for a long moment before organizing her papers. "I'll need a complete list of references, detailed medical history, financial records." "Sarah has everything ready," Ryan interrupted, a flicker of hope in his chest. "So you'll help us?" "I'll do my job," Jessica answered diplomatically, "which is to ensure the girls' best interests. If you really want to do this, you need to understand this is going to be an intensive process. Surprise visits, interviews, evaluations. Whatever it takes," Ryan vowed. Jessica nodded, standing up. "One last thing. How much do the girls know about your plans?" Ryan hesitated. "I haven't discussed it with them yet. Ava is adjusting. And Sophia," he smiled slightly, "well, she has her own opinions on everything." The previous night, Sophia's cries echoed through the hospital ward at 3 in the morning. Ryan, who insisted on staying, tried desperately to calm her while Ava slept fitfully in her bed. "Shh, it's okay," he whispered, awkwardly rocking the baby. "Are you hungry? Sleepy? Please, give me a clue." The night nurse watched him with a mix of amusement and sympathy. "First time with babies? That obvious?" he asked, still attempting to soothe Sophia. "You'll learn," she smiled, showing him how to hold the baby more comfortably. "We all do." Present. "I need to talk to Ava today," Jessica informed him, heading for the door. "Alone?" Ryan felt a pang in his chest but nodded. "Sure. Can I at least say goodbye to them first?" Jessica paused in the doorway, turning to look at him. For a moment, her professional mask slipped. "You know, when I first read about this case, a tech billionaire wanting to adopt 2 orphans, I was skeptical. I thought it would be just another wealthy man trying to polish his public image. And now?" Ryan asked. "Now," she gave a small smile, "now I'm going to do my job, and hope you are exactly who you seem to be." After Jessica left, Ryan returned to the window. Below, the city kept its frantic pace, oblivious to the drama unfolding so high above. His phone vibrated again, this time a message from Sarah, saying the investors were demanding an emergency meeting. He typed a quick reply. "Reschedule for tomorrow. Today, I have more important commitments." Grabbing his coat, Ryan prepared to head to the hospital. There was a lot of work ahead, many obstacles to overcome. But for the first time since leaving the orphanage, he felt he was doing something truly meaningful. In the elevator, another flashback struck him. His last night at Santa Cruz, at 16, vowing that one day he would return and make a difference. Back then, he imagined it would mean donations, new buildings, structural improvements. Fate, apparently, had other plans. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Ava awake, drawing in a notebook a nurse had given her. Sophia slept peacefully in a special crib. "Hey," he said softly from the door. Ava looked up, and for a moment, just a brief moment, her face lit up with something that looked like hope. That was enough to confirm to Ryan that he was doing the right thing. Now he just needed to convince the rest of the world. "I don't want to go." Ava's voice was small but determined as she clung to the staircase railing in Ryan's mansion. It was her first morning of school in the new place, and the fear in her eyes broke Ryan's heart. "I know it's scary." He knelt to her level, still wearing his impeccable Italian suit for the board meeting he had later. "But remember what we talked about. You're the bravest girl I know." Sophia, already fully adapted to her new life, gurgled happily in the arms of the nanny, Monica, a middle-aged woman Ryan had hired after extensive interviews and background checks. "What if—" Ava hesitated, biting her lip. "What if the other kids don't like me?" Ryan felt a familiar pang in his chest. He had felt that fear many times himself. "It's impossible not to like you," he smiled, adjusting her pink backpack. "Besides, I have a surprise for after school." Ava's eyes lit up slightly. "What surprise?" "Well, then it wouldn't be a surprise, would it?" He winked, finally coaxing a small smile from her. "Let's make a deal. You do your best today, and then we'll talk about anything you want. Deal?" Ava considered his proposal seriously, her little brow furrowing in concentration. "Anything? Scout's honor," Ryan promised, raising his right hand. "You were never a scout," Ava pointed out. More relaxed now, Ryan feigned shock. "How do you know?" "You don't even know how to tie your shoelaces properly," she explained with the flawless logic of a 6-year-old. "I saw you struggling with your sneakers yesterday." The sound of Monica's laughter made them turn. The nanny quickly tried to cover it with a cough, but her eyes shone with amusement. "Well," Ryan stood up, smoothing his suit jacket, "I guess I've been found out, but my promise still stands." The moment was interrupted by the sound of a horn. The driver had arrived with the secure school van Ryan insisted on. "Time to go, sweetheart," Monica said gently, still holding Sophia. Ava took a deep breath, a gesture that seemed too big for her small body, and nodded. Ryan accompanied her to the van, where a friendly driver was waiting. "Remember," he said before closing the door, "you're stronger than you think." As he watched the van pull away, Ryan checked his phone. 15 missed calls from his partners, and a message from Jessica Taylor requesting an urgent meeting. "Mr. Adams," Monica called from the doorway. "Ms." Taylor just arrived. Ryan found Jessica in his office, where she was looking at a recent photo of Ava and Sophia that he had framed. "They look happier," she commented when he walked in. "They're adjusting," Ryan replied, motioning for her to sit. "Sophia's already ruling the house, and Ava, well, today's her first day of school." Jessica nodded, taking a seat. "That's what we need to talk about. The press found out." Ryan froze mid-movement. "How?" "Apparently, someone at the school leaked the info," Jessica explained, handing him a file. "The Tech Times is running a cover story, The Billionaire and the Orphans. Redemption tale or marketing stunt." Ryan flipped through the documents, his expression darkening with each page. "They can't do this. The girls are minors. There are laws." "They plan to skirt them by focusing on you," Jessica explained. "Your past at the orphanage, your meteoric rise in tech, and," she hesitated, "some controversial decisions early in your career." Ryan's blood ran cold. "Kevin, your former partner gave a lengthy interview," Jessica confirmed. "He specifically mentions the 2015 incident with Project Aurora." Ryan abruptly stood, walking to the window. Project Aurora had been his first big success and his first big ethical compromise. At the time, it seemed necessary. Now, "Will this affect the adoption process?" he asked, still facing away. "Honestly, yes," Jessica replied. "But not necessarily in a negative way, depending on how you handle it." Ryan turned heel, surprised. "What do you mean?" Jessica stood, approaching him with a serious but kind expression. "Over the past few weeks, I've observed how you interact with the girls. I've seen how you've rearranged your entire life for them, how genuinely committed you are to their well-being. That carries a lot of weight. But transparency is crucial in this process," she finished. "If there's something in your past that could affect the girls, I need to know now." Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, memories of Project Aurora flooding his mind. The stolen code, manipulated data, crushing the competition, all in the name of success. "I was a different person then," he began, but was interrupted by the sound of small footsteps running down the hallway. "Ryan, Ryan," Ava's voice echoed, followed by sobs. He rushed to the door, finding her in the middle of the hall, tears streaming down her face. "Ava, what happened? Why aren't you at school?" I couldn't," she sobbed, throwing herself into his arms. "I got scared. I asked them to bring me back." Ryan scooped her up, feeling her small body tremble. "It's all right," he whispered, exchanging a glance with Jessica. "It's okay to be scared." "But you said I'm strong," Ava murmured into his shoulder. "And you are," he confirmed, carrying her back to the office. "Being strong doesn't mean never being afraid. It means facing your fear, even if it takes a few tries." Jessica observed the scene, her expression softening. Ryan sat on the couch with Ava still in his arms, entirely unconcerned about his expensive Italian suit, now stained with tears and a bit of kiddie makeup. "Want to know a secret?" he asked gently. Ava nodded, still sniffling. "I was scared to go to school too when I was little." That caught her attention. "You? Know why?" When she shook her head, he continued, "Because, like you, I lost my parents when I was a kid." Ava's eyes grew wide. "Really? Really?" he confirmed, noticing Jessica discreetly taking notes. "I lived in a place with other kids who also didn't have parents, and every day I was terrified to go to school, afraid the other kids would find out, afraid they'd treat me differently." "What did you do?" Ava asked, enraptured. "Well, first I cried a lot," he admitted with a small smile. "Then I learned I didn't have to be ashamed of my story, that it made me special, not different." "Am I special?" she asked, her voice small and hesitant. "You're the most special of all," Ryan promised. "And you know something else. That fear I felt helped me create something important now." "What?" Ryan exchanged a quick look with Jessica before continuing. "I'm starting a new project, a foundation to help other kids like us, so they never have to feel alone or scared." Ava's eyes lit up. "Can I help?" "Of course. he smiled. "In fact, you already are. You showed me how important it is to have someone who understands us, who cares for us." Ava seemed to ponder this deeply. After a moment, she straightened in Ryan's lap, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I think I want to try going to school again tomorrow," she declared. "Are you sure?" Ryan asked gently. She nodded. "But can you tell me more stories about when you were little later?" "As many as you want," he promised. Jessica cleared her throat delicately, reminding them of her presence. "Ava, sweetheart, how about we go see Sophia while Ryan changes for his meeting?" Only then did Ryan notice the state of his suit, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Ava gave him one last hug before following Jessica out of the office. In the doorway, Jessica paused and turned back. "About our earlier conversation, I think I've seen enough for today. But we still need to discuss that issue." Ryan nodded, understanding. The past would have to be confronted eventually, but for now, there was a board meeting to face and, more importantly, a promise of stories to keep later. While he changed, his phone rang. It was Kevin. "Have you seen the news?" came the familiar yet now grating voice. "Old times always come back to haunt us, huh, Ryan?" "What do you want, Kevin?" "Just to talk, for old time's sake. How about tomorrow at the club? We can discuss arrangements." Ryan glanced out the window at Ava, playing with Sophia in the garden, Jessica supervising them closely. "Tomorrow won't work," he answered. "I have an important commitment with my family." He hung up before Kevin could respond, feeling a strange peace despite the implied threats. Some battles were worth fighting, and at last he had found his. The rest of the day was a whirlwind of meetings, calls, and urgent emails, but Ryan kept his promise. That evening, sitting on the edge of Ava's bed, he told her stories of his childhood. The good parts, the funny parts, the ones that showed that even in the darkest moments, there was hope. When she finally fell asleep, he stayed there for a moment, watching her breathe softly. In the doorway, Jessica, who had stayed for a last-minute meeting, observed him. "You know," she said quietly when he exited the room, "when I first took this case, I had my doubts. A billionaire tech mogul wanting to adopt 2 orphans. It sounded like a movie script." "And now?" Ryan asked, gently closing Ava's door. "Now?" she smiled. "Now I think those girls hit the jackpot." "And so did you." Later, alone in his study, Ryan began to write, not emails or reports, but the project outline for his new foundation. At the top of the page, a simple name: Project Ava and Sophia, Building Bridges to the Future. The past could wait. The future was just beginning. Dawn broke gently over the Adams mansion. Ryan had been awake since 5 a.m., answering emails on his iPad while watching Sophia sleep in her crib. It was a habit he'd developed in the last few weeks. These quiet moments before the household stirred gave him a sense of peace he'd never experienced in his previous life. The little one breathed softly, her tiny hands occasionally twitching as she dreamed. Ryan still marveled at how something so small could occupy such a large space in his heart. The sound of light footsteps warned him of Monica's arrival. As always, she came in before sunrise. "Good morning, Mr. Adams," she whispered, setting her purse down in the corner. "You really should get more sleep. Today's board meeting will be long." Ryan nodded but didn't move. There was something hypnotic about watching Sophia sleep, a peace he was reluctant to break. Then he noticed she was stirring differently, her tiny muscles contracting in a way he recognized. "Monica," he called softly, "I think she's about to—" Before he could finish, Sophia opened her eyes and, with surprising determination for someone so small, grabbed the crib rails and pulled herself up. It wasn't the first time she'd done that, but her movements today seemed more deliberate. "Look at that," Monica smiled, approaching the crib. Someone woke up determined. Ryan already had his phone in hand, recording. In recent days, Sophia had been showing signs she was about to take her first steps, and he refused to miss the moment. "Come to mommy, sweetie. Come on," Monica encouraged, using the affectionate term she'd naturally adopted. Sophia wobbled, holding onto the crib rails, her bright eyes filled with determination. The sound of Ava's alarm drifted down the hallway, followed by familiar little feet running across the hardwood floor. Seconds later, she appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, her hair a messy bird's nest. "Is she gonna walk?" Ava asked excitedly, running over to the crib. "Sophia, come to your sister." As if waiting for that specific encouragement, Sophia let go of the rails and took a hesitant step. Ryan held his breath, the phone shaking slightly as he filmed. Another step, then another. Unsteady, unsure, but definitely walking. "She did it!" Ava squealed, jumping for joy. "Sophia's walking." The moment was interrupted by Ryan's phone. It was Sarah, his executive assistant, likely reminding him of the video call that was set to start in 15 minutes. "Mr. Adams?" Monica saw his hesitation. "The meeting." "They can wait," he decided, putting the phone away. He wasn't missing this for the world. For the next 20 minutes, they watched and celebrated each wobbly step Sophia took, who seemed bolder with every try. Ava provided a running commentary worthy of a sports announcer, making them all laugh with her enthusiasm. Only when Monica gently reminded Ava she needed to get ready for school did reality reassert itself. Ryan glanced at his watch and sighed. He was now 40 minutes late for the video call. "Daddy," Ava called as he stepped out of the room. The words still new enough to make his heart skip a beat. "Will you be home when I get back from school today?" The question carried the weight of broken promises before, of nights when meetings ran past bedtime, of missed moments he could never get back. "I'll do my best, Princess," he began, but the disappointment in her eyes made him stop. "You know what? I will be here. I promise." The smile she gave him in return was worth more than any contract he might sign today. In his office, the laptop screen showed a dozen missed calls and a flood of urgent messages. Sarah had sent 3 emails marked urgent. "Mr. Adams," her voice was tight when he finally answered. "The investors are furious. Mr. Marshall threatened to sell his shares if you don't show up to the meeting at 2. "Sarah," he said calmly, "how long have you worked for me?" 8 years, sir. "And in all that time, have you ever seen me truly happy?" A pause on the other end. "Not until recently, sir." "Exactly. Reschedule the meeting with Marshall for tomorrow and clear my schedule after 3. I'm picking Ava up from school today." "But sir, the board meeting can wait. My daughter can't." The words slipped out naturally now, without hesitation. There was a moment of silence before Sarah answered more softly. "I'll reorganize your calendar." The morning became a sequence of video calls and emails, interspersed with quick visits to the girls' room to witness more of Sophia's attempts at walking. Ryan realized he was smiling more than in all his previous years combined. During one of these pauses, Jessica arrived, wearing the expression he had come to recognize as a warning sign, trouble ahead. "We need to talk," she said, closing the office door behind her. Kevin gave another interview. The name of his ex-partner was enough to wipe the smile off Ryan's face. He took the tablet Jessica offered, reading the headline that would change everything. "Scandal at Adams Tech. CEO stole code that built his empire. He's willing to present evidence," Jessica continued, taking a seat across from him. "Emails, code records, witnesses. He can't," Ryan muttered, more to himself than to her. "I modified all the records, erased the traces." The words escaped before he could stop them, and he saw their impact on Jessica's face. It was the first time he'd openly admitted what he had done. "Ryan," she began, her professional tone barely masking something else, "as your social worker—" "Is that what you are?" he interrupted, years of pent-up tension finally surfacing. "Just my social worker." The silence that followed was deafening. Through the closed door, they could hear Sophia's laughter and Monica's gentle encouragement from upstairs. "No," Jessica finally replied, her voice softer. "No, I'm not just your social worker. And that's exactly why this is so complicated." Before Ryan could respond, his phone rang. It was Ava's school. His heart clenched at the sight of the number on the caller ID. Mr. Adams, the principal's voice was tense. There's been an incident. We need you to come here immediately. The drive to the school was tense and silent, Jessica insisting on going with him. Ryan ran 2 red lights, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. They found Ava in the principal's office, curled up in a chair that was too big for her, her uniform stained with juice and silent tears streaming down her face. What happened? Ryan demanded, kneeling beside her. Some students saw the story about you online, the principal explained, visibly uncomfortable. They started picking on Ava during recess. When she tried to defend herself, they said, "You're not really my dad," Ava sobbed, finally breaking her silence, "that you're just pretending to like us to look good on TV." Ryan's heart broke. He had feared something like this since the media found out. But the reality was 1,000 times worse than any scenario he'd imagined. "Ava, look at me," he asked softly, taking her small hands in his. "Remember what we talked about our story, about us being special?" She nodded hesitantly, still crying. Sometimes people say mean things because they're afraid of what they don't understand, because our family is different from what they're used to. But that doesn't change who we are or what we feel for each other. "But," she faltered, her voice trembling, "what if they're right? What if you give up on us like everyone else did?" The words struck Ryan like a punch to the stomach. Behind him, he heard Jessica inhale sharply. "Never," he stated with a conviction that surprised even himself. "I will never give up on you or Sophia. You're my daughters now, and that means forever. No matter what happens, no matter what people say, family means no one gets left behind." "You promise?" "With all my heart." Ava's hug nearly knocked him over, and he held her tightly, ignoring the tears now staining his own cheeks. Over her shoulder, he saw Jessica discreetly wiping her eyes. Back in the car, with Ava finally asleep in the back seat after the emotional ordeal, Jessica broke the silence. "You need to deal with Kevin." "I know. And we need to talk about us." Ryan kept his eyes on the road, his heart racing. "About you being more than a social worker." "Yes, it's the truth," he admitted. "You've become part of our family, Jessica. The girls adore you, and I—" "No," she interrupted gently. "We can't, not while I'm assigned to the case. It would be unethical and could compromise the entire adoption process." "What if you weren't?" The silence that followed held 1,000 unspoken possibilities. Back home, they found Monica trying to soothe a fussy Sophia, who started crying the moment she saw Ava. "She missed her sister," Monica explained with a kind smile. "She's been looking for her all afternoon." Ryan watched as Ava ran to embrace Sophia, who immediately stopped crying and attempted a few wobbly steps toward her big sister. The bond between them was magical to behold. "I'm going to call Kevin," he decided, exchanging a significant glance with Jessica. "But I'm not going to his club. If he wants to talk, he can come here." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I'm done hiding. The girls deserve a father they can look up to, not someone living in fear of the past." Kevin arrived at 8 that night, after Ava and Sophia were already asleep. His fake smile froze when he saw Jessica sitting beside Ryan in the office. "This is a private meeting," he began, but Ryan interrupted him. "No, it's not. Jessica stays. In fact," he picked up a thick envelope from his desk. "This is for you." Kevin opened the envelope, his eyes widening as he read. "You've lost your mind. This is a full confession about Project Aurora. You're admitting we stole the code, falsified data." "Yes," Ryan confirmed calmly, "along with proof you were as involved as I was. I'm going public with everything tomorrow at a press conference. You'll destroy everything we built. Years of work, billions in market value." "No," Ryan smiled, picking up a framed photo from his desk, Ava and Sophia in the garden, laughing at the camera. "I'm building something new, something better, something my daughters can be proud of." "Your daughters?" Kevin let out a humorless laugh. "They're not even really yours. Just some charity project gone wrong. A pathetic attempt to clear your conscience." Ryan stood up so abruptly that his chair toppled over. Jessica placed a gentle but firm hand on his arm, stopping him from doing something he'd regret. "Get out of my house," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Tomorrow at 9, I'm telling the world the whole truth. What you do with that is your problem." After Kevin left, slamming the door so hard it made the pictures on the wall shake, Jessica remained silent for a long moment. "You know what this means for the adoption process, don't you?" Ryan nodded. "It'll complicate everything, but the girls deserve the truth. And I deserve to be the man they believe I am. I'll have to recuse myself from the case," Jessica said softly. "It would be a conflict of interest now." "I know. And afterward," Ryan finished, venturing a small smile. "We can see where this goes." A sharp cry from upstairs interrupted them. Sophia, her cry different than usual, frightened, urgent. "Check the cameras," Ryan exclaimed, rushing to his laptop. The security system showed Sophia standing in her crib, crying, while Ava tried to comfort her through the bars. "She might have had another nightmare," Jessica commented, already running for the door with Ryan. They reached the room to find Ava whispering comfort to her sister. "It's okay, Sophia. Daddy's coming." "He always comes." Ryan felt his heart swell at those words. He picked Sophia up, settling into the rocking chair that had become his favorite spot in the house. Ava immediately snuggled next to him, as she always did. "Want me to tell you a story?" he offered, gently rocking. "Tell the one about when you were little," Ava requested, "about your first day of school." Ryan exchanged a quick glance with Jessica, who still stood by the door. She nodded slightly, smiling, then moved to leave. "Stay," he called softly. "Please." She hesitated a moment before coming in, taking a seat on the small sofa by the window. Moonlight streamed through the glass, creating dancing shadows on the unicorn and butterfly wallpaper. "It was my first day at the new school," Ryan began, his voice gentle enough to lull both Sophia and Ava. "After I went to the orphanage, everything seemed scary." As he told the familiar story, Ryan watched his daughters, because that's what they were now, regardless of any legal document. Sophia had stopped crying and was now sleepily playing with the buttons on his shirt. Ava struggled to keep her eyes open, but she smiled whenever he reached her favorite part of the story. Jessica watched them with an expression he couldn't fully decipher. There was tenderness, certainly, but also something deeper, something that made his heart race. When he finished, both girls were asleep. Carefully, he stood and laid Sophia in her crib. Ava protested sleepily as he carried her to her bed. "I don't want to sleep alone," she murmured. "You're never alone," he assured her, tucking her under the covers. "We're all here always." In the hallway, Jessica waited. The faint light gave her face a soft, almost ethereal glow. "You're good at this," she commented, "being a dad." "I'm still learning," he admitted. "But for the first time, I feel like I'm doing something truly important. The press conference tomorrow will change a lot of things," he finished. "But some things will never change. My love for them, and," he hesitated, "my feelings for you." Jessica took a step closer, stopping just inches away. "I'll submit my recusal first thing in the morning. And then, she smiled, "we can write our own story." Ryan watched as she walked down the stairs and out the front door. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, the press conference, the consequences of his revelations, the uncertain future of the adoption process. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. Because now he had something worth fighting for, bigger than any corporate empire or any shameful secret from the past. He had a family, and that, he discovered, was the true meaning of success. The first sign something was wrong came at breakfast. Sophia, who was usually bright and babbling in her attempts to form words, was quiet, her normally sparkling eyes dull and tired. Ryan noticed she barely touched her fruit puree, unheard of for the little foodie. "She's warm," Monica commented, placing a hand on Sophia's forehead. "I think she has a fever." Ryan immediately set aside his tablet, which was open to headlines about his public confession regarding Project Aurora. The news could wait. How high? Monica already had a thermometer in hand. 1 to 1.3 degree Celsius, and climbing. I'll call Dr. Martinez, Ryan decided, grabbing his phone. Across the table, Ava watched with worried eyes, forgetting her own breakfast. Daddy? Her voice was small, uncertain. Sophia's going to be okay, right? Of course she will, Princess, he assured her, though he felt a knot in his stomach as Sophia began to cry, a weak, painful cry unlike her usual strong wails. The pediatrician arrived within 20 minutes, by which time Sophia's fever had spiked to 102.2 degrees Celsius. The examination was quick and tense. Pneumonia, Dr. Martinez diagnosed gravely. And it's progressing fast. She needs hospitalization immediately. Ryan felt the world slow down. Hospitalized. At her age, we can't take risks. The fever is too high, and her lungs are already compromised. She needs IV antibiotics and constant monitoring. Everything after that happened in a blur. The ambulance, the rushed trip to the hospital, Sophia so small and fragile on a stretcher that looked way too big for her. Ryan barely registered that he was still in his pajamas by the time they reached the pediatric ER. Ava, he suddenly remembered, turning to Monica, who held the girl's hand. School. I'm not going to school, Ava declared, her voice shaky but resolute. I want to stay with Sophia. Ryan knelt before her, seeing the fear in her eyes for the first time. Princess, Sophia needs special treatment now. You won't be able to stay in the room with her. Then I'll wait outside, she insisted. Please, Daddy, I don't want to be away from her. The daddy hit him as it always did, straight in the heart. But before he could respond, his phone vibrated. It was Jessica. Ryan, I just heard. I'm on my way. How? Monica called me. You'll need help with hospital paperwork. And... She hesitated. Kevin is on another live interview right now. Ryan stared at the phone, then at Sophia being wheeled into the pediatric ICU. Ava clinging to his hand, as if her life depended on it. Let him say what he wants, Ryan decided. I have more important things to worry about now. The next 48 hours were a nightmare of high fever, antibiotics, and beeping monitors. Ryan didn't leave the hospital except for a quick change of clothes when Jessica insisted. Ava also refused to go home, sleeping on a waiting room couch despite Monica's attempts to make her leave. She needs a proper bed, Monica argued the second night. She needs to be near her sister, Ryan countered, watching Ava's fitful sleep. She's already lost her parents. I won't force her away from Sophia, too. During one of those sleepless nights, Ryan found Jessica quietly working on her laptop in the corner of the waiting room. So you should rest, he said, sitting next to her. Look who's talking, she replied with a tired smile. Besides, I'm almost done with the report for the judge. With all the chaos around Project Aurora and Sophia's hospitalization, is the adoption process in jeopardy? Jessica shut her laptop, turning to him. I won't lie. Kevin is causing a lot of damage. But I'm also receiving dozens of statements from people defending you. Former employees, business partners, even some families your charity initiative has already helped. Which charity initiative? The one you announced 3 weeks ago? The Ava and Sophia Foundation? Ryan blinked in confusion. But we haven't started operating yet. Everything's still on paper, Jessica smiled. Apparently, some people took your ideas and ran with them. 3 orphanages have already implemented your tech mentorship program, and 2 children's hospitals have received anonymous donations to set up sibling-friendly spaces, just like you suggested. Before Ryan could process that information, an alarm sounded in Sophia's room. In seconds, he was at the door, watching helplessly as the medical team scrambled. Her fever had surged again, dangerously high. Daddy! Ava's sleepy voice came from behind him. What's happening? Ryan turned to shield her view, but it was too late. Ava had already seen the medics crowding Sophia, the machines beeping, the frantic motion. No, she whispered, and then screamed, No, Sophia! It took Jessica and Monica to hold Ava back as she struggled, trying to get into the room. Ryan felt paralyzed, torn between comforting Ava and wanting desperately to be at Sophia's side. "Go," Jessica ordered, still restraining Ava. "She needs you in there." "I will take care of Ava." The next few hours were the longest of Ryan's life. The medical team stabilized Sophia, but the scare had been huge. When he finally emerged into the waiting room, he found Ava curled in a corner, refusing to speak to anyone. "Princess," he tried to approach, but she shrank away. "Go away." Her voice was rough from crying. "You promised nothing bad would happen to us. You promised we'd always be together." The blows struck Ryan painfully. "Ava, everyone lies," she continued, silent tears falling. "Everyone promises things, and then... Ryan sat on the floor beside her, keeping a respectful distance but close enough for her to reach him if she wanted. "Do you know why I lied in the past?" he asked softly. "About Project Aurora?" Ava didn't reply, but he sensed she was listening. "Because I was afraid I wasn't good enough, of losing everything I'd built. I thought lying would make me stronger, safer. But do you know what I learned?" She glanced at him sideways. "I learned real strength is in admitting our fears, in asking for help when we need it, in trusting the people we love." "Like Jessica." Ryan gave a small smile. "Like Jessica, like Monica, like you and Sophia." "But what if..." Ava's voice trembled. "What if Sophia doesn't get better?" "Then we'll face that together," he promised. "I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen, Princess, but I can promise I will never give up on you. I will never stop fighting for our family." Slowly, like a frightened little animal, Ava inched toward him until she was in his arms. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," he admitted. "But do you know what gives me courage?" "What?" "Seeing how strong you are. How you take care of your sister. How brave you are when things are tough." At that moment, Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway with a small smile. "The fever's going down," she announced. "Sophia is responding to the antibiotics." A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Ryan felt Ava relax against him for the first time in days. Can I see her?" Ava asked tentatively. The doctor nodded. "For 5 minutes. She still needs rest." In the room, Sophia was peacefully asleep, her breathing still a bit labored but much improved. Ava approached the hospital crib cautiously. "Hi, baby sister," she whispered. "I really scared me, you know." Ryan stood by the door, feeling a hand on his shoulder, Jessica's touch. "Tomorrow's headlines," she said quietly, showing him her tablet. The headline read, "Adams Tech CEO skips crisis meeting to care for sick daughter. Stocks plunge. Public approval soars." "I don't care about the stock," he replied, watching Ava softly sing to Sophia. "Some things are more valuable than money." Jessica smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. "You know, when I started this case, I thought I was just helping 2 orphans find a home. I didn't realize I was helping an entire family find each other." Ryan squeezed her hand gently. In the crib, Sophia stirred in her sleep, her tiny hand instinctively searching for something. Ava immediately placed her favorite unicorn plush, one she carried everywhere, beside her sister. "So you won't feel alone," she explained. And there, in that hospital room at 3 in the morning, Ryan Adams realized that sometimes our greatest trials don't come to break us, but to show us what we're truly made of. Kevin could try to destroy his reputation. The investors could jump ship. The whole world could doubt his intentions. But none of that mattered. Because there, in that moment, he was not a billionaire CEO or a man with a controversial past. He was just a dad with 2 amazing daughters and a heart big enough to love without measures or conditions. And that, he realized, was more than enough. It was during breakfast that Ryan first noticed something was off with Ava. Normally chatty even on the sleepiest mornings, she barely touched her cereal. Her eyes, fixed on the bowl, seemed distant, lost in thoughts too heavy for a 6-year-old. "Princess," he called softly. "Not hungry?" She just shook her head, pushing the bowl away. Next to her, Sophia, now fully recovered from pneumonia, tried to get her attention by tossing bits of banana, but Ava barely reacted. She's been like this for days, Monica whispered to Ryan when he joined her in the kitchen. Barely talks, doesn't want to play. Even with Sophia, she's different. Ryan frowned, recalling the past few days. Since Sophia's hospitalization, something had changed in Ava. At first, he chalked it up to fear or the lingering shock of almost losing her sister. But now, in hindsight, he realized it was deeper. Dr. Chen called, Monica continued, referring to the child therapist who had been seeing Ava. She wants to move today's session up to this morning. Why? She didn't say, but she sounded concerned. Ryan met Jessica in the hallway of Dr. Chen's office 2 hours later. She had insisted on being there, even though she was no longer officially the social worker on the case. How was Ava on the drive over? Jessica asked, watching the girl through the waiting room window. Ava sat in the corner, hugging her unicorn plush like a shield. Quiet, more than usual. Dr. Chen greeted them with a serious expression. We need to talk about Ava's last session. Did something happen? She started drawing something disturbing. The therapist showed them a series of drawings spread across her desk. They all depicted the same theme: a car, a dark road, figures that appeared to be her parents. In all of them, there was a small figure in the back seat, surrounded by what looked like red tears. Nightmares? Ryan asked, his heart tightening. Not exactly. Dr. Chen hesitated. Ryan, I believe Ava is carrying a very heavy burden, something that needs to be addressed in a safe, controlled environment. That's why I asked you to come in today. When Ava entered the room, she looked smaller than ever. Her eyes, usually so expressive, were downcast, avoiding contact with everyone. Ava, Dr. Chen began gently, remember what we talked about last time? About secrets that hurt our hearts? Ava nodded slightly, hugging the unicorn tighter. Do you want to tell your dad what's been making you so sad? The silence was deafening. Ryan could practically hear his own heartbeat, an undefined fear growing inside him. Ava began, her voice so low it was barely audible. I killed them. The world seemed to freeze. What do you mean, princess? It was my fault, she insisted, tears beginning to roll down her cheeks. I spilled my juice. Mommy turned around to help me clean it. Daddy looked back for just a second. Just a second. The rest came in a rush of words and sobs. How she had insisted on having juice in the car even after her mother said no. How she pretended the cup was an airplane. How the sudden movement made her drop it. How her parents got distracted for just a moment. Ryan stood paralyzed. Flash images of the accident the police described flashed in his mind. The car skidding on rain, flipping multiple times, parents killed instantly, the two sisters miraculously protected in the back seat. Ava, he finally managed, his voice shaking. It wasn't your fault. Yes, it was, she cried, truly raising her voice for the first time since entering. If I had listened, if I hadn't been bad, they'd still be here, and now Sophia almost... Her voice broke into sobs. I hurt everyone I love. Ryan moved instinctively to hug her, but she shrank away. You don't understand, she whispered. Now you're going to hate me too. You'll send us away. Never, Ryan declared, his voice steady despite the tears in his own eyes. Never, Ava. You're my daughter. Nothing will change that. But I killed them. No, sweetheart, Dr. Chen intervened gently. It was an accident. Accidents happen, even when we're very careful. But if I hadn't... What if the weather wasn't bad? Ryan added. What if the tire hadn't blown? What if 1,000 other things were different? Havers, look at me. She raised her eyes hesitantly, finally meeting his gaze. You were a child in the back seat of a car. A child being a child. What happened was a terrible tragedy, but it wasn't your fault. It never was. How can you be sure? Because I know you, he answered simply. I know your heart. I see how you care for Sophia, how kind and loving you are. No one with a heart as beautiful as yours could be to blame for something like this. Ava's sobs intensified, but this time, when Ryan opened his arms, she didn't pull away. She threw herself against his chest with enough force to nearly knock him over. "I miss them so much," she cried. "And I'm so scared." "Of what, princess?" "Of losing you too. Of losing Sophia. Of being alone again." Ryan held her tighter, his own childhood fears echoing in her words. "You'll never be alone again, I promise." The session lasted another hour, with Dr. Chen carefully guiding the conversation. Jessica remained silent, but her supportive presence was palpable. When they finally left, Ava was exhausted, falling asleep in Ryan's arms. In the car, Jessica drove while he held Ava in the back seat. "How did we not see this sooner?" he asked quietly. "Childhood trauma is complicated," Jessica replied. "They bury things in ways we don't always understand. The important thing is, we know now. Now we can help her." At home, they found Monica trying to calm an agitated Sophia. "She missed her sister," the nanny explained. "She's been fussy all morning." Ryan gently laid Ava on the couch, but before he could move away, she grabbed his hand. "Don't leave," she murmured drowsily. "Never," he promised, sitting beside her. Seeing her big sister, Sophia started squirming in Monica's arms, wanting down. The moment her tiny feet touched the floor, she toddled determinedly over to the couch. "Va," she called, her first clear word, surprising them all. Ava opened her eyes, and for the first time in days, a small smile appeared on her face. "Come here, sis." Ryan helped Sophia onto the couch, where she immediately snuggled between them. The weight of Ava's revelation still hung in the air, but there was also something new, a beginning of healing, perhaps. "You know," he said softly, "when I was little, after my mum died, I blamed myself for a long time." Ava looked at him curiously. "Why?" "Because on the day it happened, I asked her to take me to the park. She wasn't well, but I insisted. I thought if I hadn't asked, it wasn't your fault," Ava said immediately. Ryan smiled through tears. "Exactly, princess, just like it wasn't yours. But how do we know? How can we be sure?" "Sometimes we're not," he admitted. "Sometimes all we can do is choose to believe we deserve to be loved. We deserve to be happy, even when it's hard." As if understanding the gravity of the moment, Sophia placed Ava's hand on her own cheek, the same comforting gesture Ava always used to soothe her. "Va," she repeated, smiling with her few baby teeth. Ava laughed through her tears, and the sound was music to Ryan's ears. "We'll need help," he said, looking at Jessica, who stood in the doorway. "Lots of it." "And you have it," she replied, coming over to sit on the arm of the couch. "We all do." That night, after the girls finally fell asleep, Ryan found the drawings Ava had made during therapy. Looking at them now, he saw not just pain and guilt, but also the incredible bravery of a child willing to share her heaviest burden. "She's going to be okay," Jessica said, handing him a cup of tea. "Kids are more resilient than we think." "I know," he replied, taking her hand, "because she has something I didn't have at her age." "What's that?" "A family. People who love her unconditionally, who will help carry this weight until she's strong enough to realize it was never hers alone to bear." In the girls' bedroom, Sophia slept peacefully in her crib while Ava, for the first time in many nights, seemed untroubled by nightmares. Clutched in her hand against her chest was her unicorn plush, not as a shield, but as a reminder that even in the darkest nights, there's magic in a family's love. And so, on that quiet night while the city slept outside, a small family began its own healing process. It wouldn't be easy or quick, but they would do it together. Because sometimes the heaviest secrets, once finally spoken, become lighter to carry. And sometimes, only by facing our most painful truths can we truly begin to heal. The family therapy room had walls painted in soft blues and greens, decorated with framed children's drawings. Ryan watched as Ava settled onto the plush carpet, surrounded by therapeutic toys. Dr. Chen had carefully chosen Sophia in Ryan's lap, absent-mindedly tugged at his tie. "Today we're going to try something different," Dr. Chen announced, sitting on the floor with them. "Ava, Will you tell us a story using these dolls? Ava looked warily at the dolls, a small family of posable figures, a toy car, miniatures of trees and houses. What kind of story? Any story you want, the therapist smiled gently. Sometimes it's easier to talk about hard things when we pretend it's just a story. Ryan's heart ached as he watched Ava pick up the parent dolls so carefully, as though they were made of glass. Once upon a time, she began softly, there was a family driving home on a rainy night. The story came out slowly, with pauses and quiet tears. But this time, something was different. When she got to the part about the accident, Ava stopped. "And then?" Dr. Chen gently prompted. "And then?" Ava frowned, as if wrestling with a realization. A lot of bad things happened at once. The heavy rain, the blown tire, that other car suddenly appearing. Was the spilled juice the only thing that happened? Ava shook her head slowly. No, there were a lot of things. Like when Sophia got sick. It wasn't just one thing that made her go to the hospital, right? Ryan held his breath, recognizing this crucial moment. That's right, Dr. Chen smiled. Sometimes accidents are like puzzles with many pieces. No single piece alone causes everything. But Ava hesitated. What if I hadn't spilled my juice? What if it wasn't raining? Ryan offered gently. What if the tire was brand new? What if that other car hadn't been there? Ava, remember when Sophia was in the hospital and I blamed myself for not noticing she was sick sooner? But Dr. Martinez explained that sometimes bad things happen even when we do everything right. It's different, Ava protested, but her voice was less certain. Why? Because... She stopped, confused. Because you're still angry at yourself, Doctor. Chen completed softly. And sometimes it's easier to hold on to that anger than let it go. Sophia chose that moment to wriggle free of Ryan's lap and crawl to her sister, offering her favorite rattle, a toy she never parted with. Va, she grinned, pushing the rattle into Ava's hand. The simple gesture shattered something in Ava. Tears began to flow, but they were different now. No longer tears of guilt, but tears of release. I didn't mean it, she sobbed. I didn't want any of that to happen. Of course you didn't. Ryan pulled her into a hug, Sophia still in between them. You're the most caring person I've ever met, Princess. Your heart is so big. Sometimes I think it might burst from all the love inside. The session continued for another hour, with Dr. Chen guiding them through breathing exercises and techniques to manage negative thoughts. By the time they left, there was a new lightness in the air. In the car on the way home, Ava asked, Daddy? The hearing is next week, right? Ryan nearly slammed on the brakes in surprise. Yes, Princess, how do you know? I heard you and Jessica talking, she admitted. Is it true that a judge will decide if we can stay together forever? It's true, he answered honestly. But I want you to know something. No matter what happens in that courtroom, you and Sophia are already my daughters in my heart. Nothing will change that. Even after you found out what I did, especially after learning what you've been carrying, he gently corrected. Your courage in sharing something so painful only made me more certain we're a family. When they arrived home, they found Jessica waiting with a concerned expression. The judge wants a full psychological evaluation before the hearing, she told them as soon as the girls went upstairs with Monica. With everything that's happened, he thinks Ava isn't emotionally stable, Ryan finished, feeling his stomach sink. Not exactly, Jessica hesitated. Actually, he wants to evaluate you. Me? He wants to be sure you're prepared to handle her trauma, that you have the emotional resources to support her healing. Ryan laughed without humor. 6 months ago, my biggest concern was the company's stock price. Now you're a father, Jessica finished, touching his face gently, and a wonderful one. I'm afraid I might not be enough, he admitted, that I won't know how to help her the right way. That's exactly why you're exactly what they need, came a voice from the stairs. It was Dr. Chen arriving for a home follow-up. How so? Because you admit your fears, she explained. Because you're willing to learn, to grow, to ask for help. You know how many parents can't do that?" Before Ryan could answer, a joyful shout came from upstairs, followed by a laugh they hadn't heard in weeks. Ava was laughing. They all hurried to the girls' room and found a heartwarming scene. Ava sat on the floor, surrounded by old photos Monica had found at the Mitchells' home. Instead of crying like before, she was showing the pictures to Sophia, telling her stories. "Look, Sophia, here's Mommy holding you when you were born. And here's Daddy teaching me to ride a bike." "Va happy," Sophia clapped, making Ava laugh again. "Yeah," she said, glancing at Ryan in the doorway. "Va's happy." That night, after the girls were asleep, Ryan found Jessica in his study, surrounded by documents for the upcoming hearing. "How are we doing?" "Honestly," she smiled, "better than you think. Judge Peterson is known for valuing families that seek professional help, that show real commitment to emotional healing. And the fact that we're," he gestured between them, "you know, in love," she finished with a grin. "I've already clarified my position to the court. I'm no longer the assigned social worker, and our relationship started after I stepped away officially." Ryan moved closer, taking her hand. "You know, for years I thought success meant more money, more power, more control. Now I know true success is hearing Ava's laughter after weeks of silence. It's seeing Sophia take her first steps. It's having you by my side as we build something real, something that matters." A small sound at the door interrupted them. It was Ava, hugging her unicorn plush. "Nightmare?" Ryan asked softly. She shook her head. "No. I just wanted to say goodnight again." When she came for a hug, Ryan noticed something different in her eyes, a peacefulness he hadn't seen in a long time. "You know," she whispered, "I think Mommy and Daddy would be happy we found you. And Jessica. And Monica. I'm sure they would, Princess. And I think," she hesitated, "I think they wouldn't want me to be sad forever." Ryan hugged her tighter, tears in his own eyes. "No, they wouldn't. They'd want you to be happy, to live a life full of love and joy." "Like now?" "Like now." After Ava returned to her bed, Ryan and Jessica remained silent for a moment, absorbing the impact of that brief conversation. "We still have a long road ahead," Jessica commented. "Yes," Ryan agreed, "but for the first time I think we're truly moving forward. Not just Ava, but all of us." Through the baby monitor, they heard Ava whisper to Sophia, "Good night, sis. Tomorrow will be better, and the day after that, even better, I promise." And for the first time in a long while, everyone believed that promise. The morning of the hearing arrived with a gentle mist covering the city. Ryan adjusted his tie in front of the mirror, his hands trembling slightly with the anxiety he tried to hide. The reflection showed a man transformed by the events of the past months, not just on the outside, but in his very essence. "Daddy," Ava called from the door, looking lovely in her navy blue dress. "Are you nervous?" He turned, smiling as he saw his daughter clutching her beloved unicorn plush. "A little bit, Princess? Are you?" She nodded, stepping forward for a hug. "What if the judge doesn't like us?" "Impossible," he replied, kneeling to meet her eyes. "He'll see what I see, a family that loves each other more than anything." Breakfast was a mix of tension and hope. Sophia, oblivious to the nerves, babbled happily in her own language, while Monica tried to get her to eat without making too much of a mess. Jessica arrived carrying the final reports and an air of professional calm that helped soothe everyone's nerves. "Dr. Chen was extraordinary in her assessment," she remarked, sitting down with them. "Judge Peterson has been briefed on all circumstances, including—" She glanced at Ava, who was playing with her cereal. The courthouse was packed when they arrived. Familiar and unfamiliar faces filled the benches. Adams Tech executives, reporters, even Kevin, seated discreetly at the back. The surprise came when Ryan's attorney informed him that Kevin had requested to testify. "He can't sabotage the process," Jessica assured Ryan, noticing the worry on his face. "In fact, I think you'll be surprised." Proceedings began with the usual formalities. Judge Peterson, his gentle eyes peering over thin-framed glasses, first heard the official reports. Then came the most nerve-wracking part, Ava's private conversation in his chambers. "Remember what we said," Ryan whispered to her. "Just tell the truth." The next 20 minutes felt like an eternity for Ryan. Sophia, sensing his tension, kept calling him, "Da, sad." When Ava returned, her eyes were red, but there was a small smile on her face. The judge followed with a neutral expression and called Kevin to the stand. Kevin's testimony shocked everyone. Instead of accusations, he told a story of transformation, not just Ryan's, but his own. "The man I see today," Kevin declared, "isn't the same young guy who would do anything for success. Ryan Adams did something I never thought possible. He chose love over power, family over business, truth over profit." One by one, the testimonies followed. Ava's teacher described how she had become an advocate for classmates who were bullied. The pediatrician detailed the family's dedication during Sophia's hospitalization. Monica spoke about the daily little victories she witnessed. Finally, it was Ryan's turn. He stood, adjusting his tie one last time, and instead of addressing the judge, he turned to his daughters. "When I was a child," he began, "I learned the hard way that family isn't guaranteed. I spent years building walls, convinced that success and power were all that mattered. Then, on a dark night, I found two sisters who changed everything I thought I knew about love and courage." He looked at Ava, whose eyes brimmed with tears. "You taught me that true strength isn't about never falling, but about getting up every time. About facing our hardest truths with bravery," turning to Sophia. "And you, my little warrior, showed me that joy can be found in the simplest moments. A smile, a new word, a tight hug." Finally, he faced the judge. "Your Honor, I'm not just asking for legal custody. I'm asking for the chance to keep being the father they've taught me to be, to continue our journey together, because it's not just them who need me, I need them." A profound silence followed. Judge Peterson removed his glasses, cleaning them methodically as he weighed everything he'd heard. "Mr. Adams," he began, "in 30 years on the bench, I've seen hundreds of adoption cases, each unique, each special. But I've rarely seen a family demonstrate such commitment to mutual healing and growth." He paused meaningfully. Ava's revelation about her biological parents' accident is deeply moving. But what strikes me is how this family chose to address it, with honesty, courage, and unconditional love. Ryan felt Jessica squeeze his hand. "Therefore," the judge continued, "I grant permanent custody of Ava and Sophia Mitchell to Mr. Ryan Adams on the condition they continue therapeutic support as needed." The courtroom erupted in applause. Ava ran into Ryan's arms, tears of joy now streaming down her face. Sophia, not wanting to be left out, started shouting, "Da, va!" until Jessica brought her over. "It's official," Ryan whispered, hugging his daughters. "We're a family forever." The celebration at home was intimate but joyous. While the girls played in the yard, Ryan found a moment alone with Jessica. "There's something I need to ask you," he began, guiding her to a quieter corner. "Ryan, you've been with us from the start," he smiled, taking her hands. "You saw our family born, grow, face storms, and come out stronger. The girls love you, I love you, and I can't imagine our story continuing without you." He knelt down, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Yes!" Ava shouted, running up with Sophia close behind. "Say yes, Jess." Jessica laughed through tears. "How could I say no to this family?" "There's always a choice," Ryan smiled. "But I hope you choose us." "Yes," she replied, pulling him in for a kiss as the girls cheered. 1,000 times yes. 1 year later, Ryan's office looked different now. Among the awards and charts were Ava's drawings and Sophia's early attempts at scribbling letters. The unicorn plush held a place of honor on his desk, to bring luck in business, as Ava insisted. At home, the family had grown. Jessica was expecting their first child. Thor, the golden retriever, had learned not to chew on Sophia's toys, and Ava was writing her first children's story for the Ava and Sophia Foundation. Sometimes I still can't believe it, Ryan commented one evening, watching the girls sleep. Believe what? Jessica asked, resting her hand on her growing belly. How one dark night on a deserted road changed everything. It wasn't the night, she smiled. It was your choice to stop, to care, to love. He kissed her gently, silently thanking all the choices that led them here. Because sometimes the best families aren't the ones we're born into, but the ones we choose to build day by day, with love, courage, and the certainty that no matter what happens, we'll always have each other. And in the end, that's all that really matters. Later that night, after the house finally grew quiet, Ryan found Ava still awake, gazing at the stars outside her bedroom window. Can't sleep, princess? I was thinking, she replied softly. Do you think they can see us? Mommy and Daddy? Ryan sat beside her on the windowsill. I'm sure they can. And I bet they're very proud of the amazing girl you've become. Sometimes I still miss them, she admitted, but it doesn't hurt as much now. It's more like a warm kind of missing. That's how it should be, he smiled, pulling her close. The love we feel for those who've passed on never goes away. It just becomes something that makes us stronger. From the crib, Sophia let out a small, contented sigh in her sleep, as if agreeing. Ryan watched his daughters, one growing wiser and stronger, the other blossoming in joy and curiosity, and felt his heart overflow. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, fear, and deep pain. But each challenge, each tear, each moment of uncertainty led them here, to this moment of peace and belonging. On the bedroom wall, a new frame hung beside the Mitchells' photos, a picture of the whole family. Ryan, Jessica, Ava, Sophia, and Thor, all smiling under the sun at a recent picnic. It wasn't a replacement of the past, but a continuation of their story. New chapters written in ink of love and hope. Daddy? Ava called sleepily, heading to her bed. Thank you for stopping that night. No, princess, he replied, tucking her in. Thank you for teaching me how to be a dad. As he gently closed the door, Ryan thought of all the dark nights yet to come, all the challenges still ahead. But now he knew they would face them together. Because sometimes the greatest miracles begin on the darkest nights, and the greatest loves are born in the most unexpected moments. And so, in a house filled with love high above the city, a family forged by destiny and choice continued their journey. It wasn't a happily ever after, it was something far better. It was a happy new beginning, with the promise of many more chapters still to come,